Good evening, everyone. Darren Adair with American Hospitality Consulting. Welcome to Great Minds Session 7. It's a pleasure to have all of you with us, especially on a week where I know it's a holiday week and people were off last week in Canada, people are off this week in the US, so there's lots of holiday stuff going on and we're actually getting some weather that we can enjoy it, and things are opening up so we can do that too. So it's awesome to be able to take that time. So if people are off doing that, then let's be happy for them, and I'll be a little bit jealous as well because I'd like to do that too next week. But tonight we're going to be talking about something that really isn't talked about enough. And it's because it's not an easy topic to talk about. It makes a lot of us uncomfortable, but it needs more discussion. And it's something that I'm very happy that we're getting the opportunity to actually do that this evening. So we're talking about mental health and making sure we're providing an environment within our businesses, our restaurants and hospitality businesses that is positive culture, that we're making it a top priority to properly address any challenges or anything that may be coming up. So I'm very happy to have with us this evening a friend of mine who, thinking about it, we've known each other all the way back to grade 5. So a long time. I'm not going to tell you how long that is. So joining us today to speak to us as our panelist is Treena Reilkoff. She is an ADR practitioner and certified resiliency trainer with experience in trauma-informed practices, inclusive of promoting strategies and optimizing resiliency. She brings more than 25 years experience with a professional background that is diverse and includes working in the fields of mental health, behavioral analysis, corrections, alternative dispute resolution, and social work. Treena has a BSW, a BA, an executive certificate in conflict management, holds a designation of a qualified mediator from the ADR Institute of Canada, certified psychological health and safety advisor, CMHA, and workplace restoration specialist and workplace fairness analyst. So needless to say, Treena is very qualified to lead us in this discussion this evening, and I'm very happy to have her here. So Treena, thank you very much for taking the time and joining us this evening. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Darren. I'm excited to be here and talk about a passion topic of mine.
All right, awesome. So, if you want to jump right in, Treena, I know you got some slides you're going to share with us to start. But, as you're pulling that up, guys, one of the things that I was really wanted to get into this was because, we're starting to hear more and more about this. The last 16 months have been tough on everybody. I'm reading articles where people are leaving our industry because lack of work-life balance, lack of the support or positive culture, or understanding that there are challenges that we're facing and we're not willing to talk about them, to acknowledge them, or to help out with them. So I just felt that this was something we needed to talk about. And I'm so happy that I've got somebody who is an expert in this and can help point us in the right direction, answer your questions, and give you information. As we're going through, we're going to let Treena do her presentation. If you do have questions, just please put a note in the chat function like we typically do, and I will bring you in after she's done to ask your questions. But guys, please ask questions, because again, we do not talk about this topic enough, and this is a great opportunity for you to get yourself educated and prepared to make sure that you can help provide your teams with the support they need to have a happy and successful business. So Treena, take it away.
Thank you. So as Darren mentioned, the topic of mental health sometimes, or the topic of trauma, brings negative feelings, thoughts to us. So in this hour, and hopefully you got lots of questions, I want you to kind of reframe how we're looking at not necessarily mental health in the workplace and in the restaurant hospitality industry, but looking at it as psychological health and safety under occupational health and safety codes, or under psychological wellness, right? Because we all need wellness. And we know COVID has created trauma across the world, and we're all dealing with it differently and experiencing different things. And this is a collective experience that will impact us now and in our future and our future generations. So I just wanted to start off with the definition of what intergenerational trauma is. So you kind of get an idea of moving forward today in your personal life and business life, what we do today, the lens that we look through things, how we deal with people, the communication and style of communication we use will impact us. So I like to start off thinking, here's a time for a paradigm change, and here's the time because COVID is like a death that is created. Our past is gone. We can't go back to how it was. There's no rule book manual for how it should be and what it's going to look like in the future. So here's your chance to create your leadership legacy within your business, in your restaurant industry, and what you do. So intergenerational trauma is a trauma that is experienced by one generation, and that's us now, and it is transmitted to subsequent generations, ultimately affecting their health and well-being. The trauma can occur as a personal level, abuse, for example, or as a collective level, COVID. So look at this as a risk mitigation through a proactive lens, right? We don't want to be reactive, we want to be proactive for future. So what are the important things to recognize regarding psychosocial impact of COVID-19? There's been new legislation in Canada, and I'm sure there's some legislation in the States that is looking at how we deal with psychological health and safety in the workplace, mental health. So what we do know is the psychosocial impact of COVID-19. There's been financial loss, job insecurity, unemployment, isolation, anxiety, depression, fear, unhealthy coping. So a lot of people have, resorted to addictions or have started to have addictions, unhealthy eating patterns, invisible trauma. So what that means is when you interact with people and how COVID or other experiences are, you don't know somebody's reacting or having a trauma experience. And what COVID is, it's an invisible trauma because we can't see it. We don't know when it may hit us and when it may not hit us. So there's always that hypervigilance, right? And if you think in the restaurant industry, staffing, the customers, there's an extra level of hypervigilance, of fear of the unknown. So we want to mitigate that. What does that look like? Mental and emotional abuse, the loss of safety and security in the restaurant industry. So and you guys will have a copy of this PowerPoint with some other websites to reference to explain this in more detail. What we know within the legislation and human rights, recent human rights in Ontario, they have just created the legal terminology for psychological violence. And what that means is where everybody used to say it was a toxic work environment, that's not a legal term. But a legal term now is a poisonous work environment. And a poisonous work environment is the responsibility of the employer to create a healthy psychological safe one. And if it is dubbed through an investigation or a complaint that it is a poisonous work environment, it can directly contribute to the deterioration of an employee's mental health. When we look at human rights legislation, accommodations for mental health in the workplace, what does that look like? And do you understand what accommodations means for in the restaurant industry? And once I kind of hit the policies, I'll give you a concrete example to be able to understand what that may look like. So Ontario as well has just created, and across Canada, there's other bills, but it's the Domestic Violence Protection Act. So if somebody's experiencing domestic violence, they're working for your restaurant, and that ex comes in, or the one who's abusing them comes in, you need policies in place of how to create that safe environment, both physically and mentally for your employees. Another human rights, which I had spoke to again, right, is the poisonous work environment. And that was again through another human rights decision. So if you look out or look up your Occupational Health and Safety Act in the province, you'll have your psychological violence under a specific code. For federally related businesses, crown corporations, it's Bill C-65. So when we look at it and you ask yourself, do you have these policies in your restaurant industry or in your hospitality industry? Do you have the domestic violence policy? Is it in your state or in your province? Do you have a workplace violence policy? By the new occupational health and safety legislation, you need to have mandated workplace violence policy. Do you have a cannabis use policy? So across North America, the world, the use of cannabis recreationally and medicinally. So do you have a policy that reflects what are your standards of use in your industry? Impairment policy. So that looks at not only cannabis potential use, but alcohol or other drugs. And then do you have accommodation policy? So kind of an example to still this can't even say the word today, long day, to show you and demonstrate how this might look. So I used to was a case manager with Veteran Affairs. So I've also, my ex is military, so I've lived it, case managed Veteran Affairs members coming out. And a lot of the members, when they go to their second career and they're medically released, they've gone in the culinary industry and they've gone to get their degrees, diplomas, whatever they need. So when you're looking at a vet who's coming to work for you and he's in the culinary industry, and the vet has some mental health or physical conditions. And with this mental health condition, he has a medical prescription for cannabis. If you are not up and aware on cannabis and the medical prescriptions, people often assume that it's THC and you're going to be high and it's going to impair you at work, thus your risk. But today, within medical prescriptions, CBD is totally different from THC, and in medical prescriptions, there's certain variation where a veteran whose culinary expertise is now working for you is on a medical prescription, and it's CBD, which means he's, either takes it as an oil, as a tea, has a topical application. But what if somebody in your workplace overheard he was taking cannabis and they'd go and tell the manager, the supervisor, the owner of the restaurant, and you immediately go dismiss him? Well, if you don't have a cannabis use policy in place, and if you don't understand accommodations related to mental health, physical health, and prescribed cannabis, you might have a lawsuit for wrongful dismissal. So checking in with your policies and updating them to be in compliance with the legislation is very important, but it's also a proactive factor in reducing and mitigating future risk, which can be more costly when you're looking at lawsuits, harassment claims, stuff like that. So what we know about mental health in the workplace, it is now a business metric. We can actually, and I have a tool that can actually help you calculate a baseline of how much money is being paid out for reactive measures, because proactive measures for psychological health and safety in the workplace have not been implemented. 500,000 Canadians miss work each year because of poor mental health. Pre-COVID, and this is kind of scary, they predicted that mental health would cost $16 trillion by 2030. This was pre-COVID. And right now we know the fear to come back, everything's opening up, that anxiety, that hypervigilance, anxiety, panicky feeling. It's a common feeling across. Only 1/3 of Canadian employers have a mental health strategy. And this was also interesting. Millennials as a generation are looking to mental health supports before they decide to sign on for work. So what does that look like for you when you're in your hiring process? This is where the key to your employees who stayed with you or have returned, they are your prime skill set, your optimum opportunities to find out why they stayed with you or why they returned, because there's something there that you can build upon regarding the psychological health and safety in the workplace. Because those employees that come back that stayed with you, they feel comfortable, they feel safe, they understand the process, the education. They're going to be the ones to recommend people coming to work for your restaurant. They're going to be the ones that through word of mouth, people come, and through the different behaviors that they show, the language they use about how they feel safe and how they communicate safety in your restaurant when they first meet the patrons is going to be a huge factor in success or failure. So where to start? What we know about operational resiliency, that your business ability to change or adapt during times of stress, disruption, or uncertainty is also a key factor for success and the employee morale in these turbulent times. It's more than just business continuity planning, right? It's a holistic and it's a total strategic framework. So again, changing that lens of how you view business and looking at what frameworks, what other extra resources you can be implementing that are proactive, cost-effective, including free. So operational resilience is a set of techniques that allow people, process, and information systems to adapt to the changing patterns. So take a time when SARS was big in Ontario. It wasn't big in Western Canada. For those in Ontario, reflect back. How did you get through SARS? What were the modifications you implemented physically, safety-wise, but for your employees, for the staff, for your patrons, customers who came in? What modifications? Learn from how you adapted, build on those strengths. So where do you want to start your leadership legacy, right? The staff that stayed and returned, they're the key. They're the ones that are going to help you identify how to grow, how to create that psychological health and safe workplace. There's a baseline for future staff, and communication of the COVID safety protocol and guidelines is what's going to retain. It'll help the growth. So, for example, I was out for dinner at a restaurant yesterday at a favorite one that I go because there's a favorite drink I like. I won't name the restaurant though, but the one close by my home was closed. So I picked the next closest one in Burlington, right? 2 cities away from where I am, but the distance isn't that far. And I like going there because they communicated their safety protocol with me, the server, when she first entered, right? There was the usual check-in for COVID, take the tracing information, but they had a no-touch policy for the cutlery. She explained their process, how they clean stuff in the back, the process at the beginning, and asked me if there was any questions that I needed to clarify just to ensure I felt safe in this restaurant. So that's why I always went back to the restaurant beside me, one of my favorite ones. When I went to the one in the other city, they didn't ask me any of those questions. They didn't do the no-touch policy with the cutlery. And it was a conversation of COVID safety for the person I was with, right? And would I go back to that restaurant in that city? Probably not, right? Because that feeling of communicating to me what the restaurant had implemented and what they do for their employees to stay safe, reiterated and shared with me how their interest in having me come and return is to keep me safe too. So recognizing the communication between management to the front line, to the servers, to everybody, but if they feel safe and they communicate safety, it's going to naturally shine through their behaviors, which is important in the restaurant industry. Education of policy and resources to mitigate psychosocial hazards. So do you have any training in place? Weekly sessions online for your employees to educate them of what they need to do to feel psychologically safe. And what is the financial human factor cost of not being proactive right now? So what I kind of listed here and what's kind of exciting, because I'm a registered certified analysis for the Canadian National Standards of Workplace Psychological Health and Safety through the Canadian Mental Health. So I can go into any business anywhere across Canada. But what's exciting about this is that it's a voluntary guideline. It was created in 2013 by the government, mandated by the Mental Health Commission as a framework to help promote mental health wellness and prevent psychological harm. So when we're looking at psychosocial factors, that's kind of what I shared here, is here are the 13 psychosocial factors that you look at when trying to create the framework of creating that psychological health and safe workplace. And you don't have to implement the full standard from beginning to end. You can start at any place and see what that looks like for you. And what was exciting and the importance of mental health and wellness, not only in Canada and the United States, June 2019, the Geneva Convention adopted the national standards. And just last week, and I will send the link out to Darren, because it has free resources as well, is that the Psychological Health and Safety Standards on Wellness has become international standard ISO standards. So they got 79 countries together to agree upon what is required and needed to create a psychological health and safe workplace. So I will share that with you and a few other links, because if you don't want to have somebody help set it up for you, or maybe do a real deep dive to find out what's going on and create a proactive plan, there's resources of how you can look at your business and implement these plans yourself.
Awesome.
And there's two people.
Thank you, Treena.
Or sorry.
Go ahead.
Did you want to read the chat, or would you like me to read the chat?
I'll go through the chat. So guys, if you got any questions, just please put a note in the chat and then I'll open you up. I've got a couple of things, Treena, before anybody else jumps in, or we're waiting for them to jump in. So on one of your slides, you started talking about policies and looking at your policy manuals and updating those. And we've got an expert on here who's great at updating policy manuals, and she probably won't want me to say her name because she's done so many of them. But she is an expert, and she can pipe in if she wants. But what are some of the good places to go to start looking at what you should have? Is there any generic forms or tools you can pull off the internet or through government agencies to kind of point you in the right direction?
There actually is. If you go on to the Occupational Health and Safety of Canada, or I'm not sure what it looks like in the States or in the provinces, they do have templates for policy development related to the cannabis. And it's not that I'm, trying to promote my other business that I'm connected with. With the cannabis, because it is so new and there's new laws, new openings, I'm one of the mediators and facilitator consultants with the Canadian Cannabis Dispute Resolution Center, right? So we are giving workshops to give more information to HR and businesses on policies and policy development around cannabis, the difference between CBD, THC, the dosages, what does impairment look like? How would you mitigate that? How do you approach this so you aren't potentially facing a lawsuit for wrongful dismissals or harassments? So there is, as we are developing, but you can go on occupational health and safety standards to get some policy framework.
I would expect that's probably OSHA down.
Yeah, and one of the links to within the framework of the psychological health and safety, or I was on a call with the international standards. They are providing some templates too. So you could, create your own policy, but it's just to make sure you have a policy, because that's going to be the mitigating risk coming in investigation or have a harassment complaint or bullying complaint.
Cool. Now, to talk about the cannabis piece, and it might even be a little bit of a different challenge as well, I think, because those of us who've been in the industry a long time, and not to pick on the chefs and kitchen workers on here, but there's use of cannabis by restaurant employees. That's not a new thing,
right?
But it was a lot clearer in the past what you could do about it. Now it's less clear because you need to give other considerations. So really educating yourself on that type of thing and what you're responsible for and what you need to do and all of that becomes that much more important, right? And that's starting to happen. Yeah, and it's starting to happen here in the U.S. More and more states are looking at legalizing it. We had a big story down here where that one Olympic runner who used it and is now has to miss one of her races, and she's like the best in the world.
Yeah.
And she lives in a state where it's legal to use it, but because the International Olympic Committee does not have, it's a drug and they don't approve it, she's missing out. And she used it for somebody passed away, right? I mean, so the mindset still has to change. I think it has to change within our industry as well. It has to change in a lot of places, I'm sure. So, it's good that you brought that up, because I think we need to start. There's a lot we need to look at. And you talked about a lot of good things in there, right from that hiring process and knowing what you're doing and creating that, that word of mouth that you have that positive culture and that safe environment is going to go a long way to providing you with the people you need to run your business. And we all know how tough that is right now.
Yeah.
So, one more question as we're waiting for someone to come in here. Again, you talked a lot about Canada. I know you have some experience with the US, but, can you give a little bit on, is there any of this stuff that you think would be transferable or that they could utilize down here that might be, I know you mentioned that 79 countries have agreed to that one piece, but, any other things that you could share for the people on the call who are from the US?
Oh yeah, the thing is with what I'm sharing, besides researching within your state, your own occupational health and safety standards and updated policies and legislation, which is state by state different. All what I've spoke of, the framework, whether it's the Canadian framework or the ISO framework, it's interchangeable across the world, right? Because mental health mental health safety awareness, our experiences of COVID, the anxiety, the hypervigilance of everybody coming out, it's across the nation. So it's even recognizing, and it's sometimes it's a tool to ask yourself when you're, you're running your business, you own it, whatever position you're in, and give yourself a scale question, 1 to 10. How am I feeling about if everything opened fully? Am I 100% confident and I feel safe and secure where I am? And if you don't, ask yourself why and what you would look. If you were a customer, if you were an employee just coming here, what is it that you would look for? And that's where the staff that stayed or returned, they're the key to asking the questions, to doing the survey of why'd you come back? Why, what makes it good for you here, right? Do you feel safe? What, ask their opinions. What is safety to you in the workplace, right? That includes how you speak to people, because again, with the occupational health and safety and just harassment, the language you use, right? So the emotional abuse, the verbal abuse is no longer going to be tolerated, because people are going to quit because it's not worth their mental health.
Right.
So having a environment of respect. So even like a lot of businesses, and I know within the federal government and a lot of big corporations, they are having the respect policy. What does that look like to you? What is respect in the workplace? And having that, and that's part of the training, and it's part of the initial training when you come in, because here's what it looks like. This is the behavior that we're all gonna, demonstrate. Here's the language we're gonna use of what it looks like to be respectful. Recognizing we're all human and we all have those bad days and stuff happens. But what is respect is going, yeah, I was in a bad mood, or I shouldn't have said that to you, or I'm sorry for biting your head off. I'm having a tough day, or you know what, I actually came into work. And that's the thing with the anxiety, panicky, and COVID feeling. You could be feeling great one day and it's not. And then all of a sudden, maybe a family member has COVID now, or a close friend and they're on a ventilator. That vicarious trauma is going to impact you and make you think when you're walking into work. So having a trauma-informed lens of everybody, because you don't know what's going on, but we need to all be sensitive, because COVID has impacted us all. And
Definitely.
through behavior and conversation, how you speak is the key to promoting the psychological safety workplace.
Definitely. You mentioned something, you talk about the respect in the workplace policies, and those have been around for years. And I remember even when I was at Tim Hortons, one of the checks we would do was make sure everybody had signed off on that respect in the workplace policy. But I think in a lot of cases, here's a policy, sign it. Whereas now it's, here's our policy and we actually enforce it. We actually mean it. We actually support it. I'm sure we've all, and I know many of the people who are on here can tell stories of working in an environment that was less than cordial, right? And I'm not talking, you're working long hours, you're working a lot of days. We've all done that in an organization where you loved it because you loved people you work with, people respected you, they had your back, you knew all that. But then there's also those ones, it's the best example I can give is Gordon Ramsay when he's working with adults versus Gordon Ramsay when he's working with kids.
Yes.
Right. And that's TV. And you don't have a lot of chefs out there like that anymore. And I did work with a chef like that when I first got into the business, who you needed to know how to duck quickly or there's a butcher knife coming at your head. So that type of stuff is gone, or not gone. It's not where it was, but we need to be more conscious of this. So it's definitely something we need to.
It's even cooled off some for you. It's even
definitely
cooled
something
off
we
some for you.
we need to make sure we're more conscious of and being more specific towards. So guys, we've got Angeli a question. So Angeli, if you wanted to unmute yourself and ask your question, that would be great.
Hi, Darren. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. Hi, Treena. I
Hi.
love your chat. It's so amazing. So much experience. So thank you. I was really excited to hear you speak tonight. So I just threw it in the chat, and I think there's so many awesome minds, great minds on this, on this session tonight. And I know the weather is warm, and it's super hot here in Ontario. So but I do feel that the question that I wanted to ask was just in regards to the policy formation, right? So a lot of the things that in your experience, Treena, and even some of my experience with writing policies, it's great to put something on a piece of paper, but just really maybe we could talk about some strategies or also some approaches to getting that endorsement, getting implementation, making sure that people really truly understand the policy. And I've seen this, just in my experience as well. I'm sure Darren and other people have seen it, where you have a manager who's trying to do onboarding and they have a policy manual, they review it, they sign it, you get them to read it page by page, but then they kind of forget about it almost, like there's not a refresher. So just ensuring that, right from the top down, from a management perspective, especially as policies keep changing, that people really are really adapting and monitoring and enforcing all of this. So just wondering if maybe we could open up and talk about some strategies, tips, successes, things like that, because it's a great topic, and I'm really enjoying everything that you're sharing, Treena. So thank you.
Well, if you want me to start off, I can share just like when you're because I've been a behavioral consultant as well. So when you're looking at policies, behavior implementation, you're looking at if people aren't demonstrating the behavior, we have to understand first, is it a skill deficit? So they don't even have the skill. We've just assumed they have the skill. We assume they have this communication ability to speak how we would like them to speak. So when you're looking at psychological health and safety, how do they communicate, right? So to assume everybody has these skills is sometimes the skill deficit that has not been addressed. If they have the skill, but they don't know how to provide it in that environment, they have a performance deficit, right? So when you're looking at how to implement it from top down, it's that old saying is people learn more and watch through behaviors of others. You have to model the talk. And with COVID, and this is where COVID has taught us and how to create a leadership legacy. And that's, I don't know, I love using that term because the book is closed and we are creating it today. When you're vulnerable. So the top level to say, you know what, I came in today, but you know what, I was a friend just got COVID or a family member and I'm doing this, or the single parent. It's just having some of that empathy and recognizing we're human, and you might feel that anxiousness or that just uneasiness. So does your management, does your executive levels not only have the policy in place, but are they equipped with some tools of how to manage and have that conversation to make somebody feel safe if they're potentially having a trauma response? Because you don't know when it's going to happen. And when you look at some of the people that have had COVID and they're okay to come back to work because they've gotten the medical checky box that, yeah, you're COVID free, you're able to return to work. More and more is coming back of the diagnosed COVID-induced depression or anxiety, right? So it's just having upper level, have a more understanding of what trauma-informed communication looks like in a COVID sense. Walking the talk, and I was going to say, the compliments, it's not necessarily a compliment, and I was going to share this at the end, but it kind of fits in because we want to model the behaviors, demonstrate them, and recognize people when they're in a behavioral context, right? Recognize people when they're demonstrating the behaviors you want to support a psychological health and safe workplace. So gratitude, it's free. All of us can actually say we're grateful for something, tell somebody we're grateful, or receive gratitude. Through a biological MRI scientific component, gratitude, when we receive or express it, our brain actually releases dopamine and serotonin, the two crucial neurotransmitters responsible for our emotions, and they make us feel good. They enhance our mood immediately, and they make us feel happy from the inside out. So what would happen if somebody is having a bad day or they're not performing what they're supposed to, or how to the level of expectation, that you reframed it and you came in from a lens, a position of curiosity of, hey, what's going on? You're not acting yourself, or you just blew up and you know, how you treated that other member, staff member, employee, or customer was not acceptable. You know, it's not tolerated. We have these policies, but I want to check in with you because you know what? COVID has impacted all of us. So I've seen you do this well, and I know you have this skill set. So what's going on? Right? And it's not ignoring what had happened, but it's finding the underlying what had happened. And then through the information, the conversation, and identifying the strengths, you're coming from a resiliency, operational resiliency standpoint, where it's the strengths that you identify that will help build out the deficits. And from a strategic planning framework, that's where if you yourself can't identify what your resiliency strengths are, your protective factors, and how you've used them to date during COVID or in crises with the restaurant industry or personal, how do you, as an executive, as a manager, as a leader, help somebody else identify their strengths and pull them out? Right? So it's coming within, knowing your strengths and having that skill and ability to be able to identify other strengths that will then address the deficits, or where the deficits can then intermingle and grow and learn from the experience. Because right now, if somebody doesn't feel safe or they feel harassed or bullied, more and more people are quitting because it's not worth it. The environment is, COVID has taught us that the simple things of feeling safe, respected, healthy communication is so valuable, and sometimes monetary is not worth it to be abused.
No, some awesome points. There's a couple of things that, that whole walk the talk, which, we've been saying that for years, but it has such a massive impact, and we sometimes really don't give it the value that it really has, and it's so important. And you made me, read something on LinkedIn earlier today. There was a guest who went into a restaurant, and when they walked in, the team members in there were celebrating the birthday of another team member, and they're hugging and high-fiving and cake. So when you talk about, the gratitude and that kind of thing, that simple $8 cake and everybody singing happy birthday and all that kind of stuff, not only does it make that team member feel good, that person walked into that restaurant and they felt good, because this is an area where people respect each other and support each other. So, it carried over to them. So we've got to understand that our team members' moods and the way they handle things will carry over to our guests, and it does impact the overall wellness of our business and success of our business. So, some great points there. Warren, I want to come over to you because you made a comment, and, as an educator, I'm wondering, is this something that is consciously being talked about in the programs? Because, you and I have been around for a long time. You're an amazing chef. You've worked in a lot of kitchens in different parts of the world, and I'm sure you've seen some amazing things and some scary things. But, what are we doing to set up the future generation to make sure that they understand these things?
Yeah.
Not to put you on the spot or anything, Warren.
No, of course not, Darren. Yeah, look, being a chef for the last 30 years, I've experienced some of the highs and lows of being in the kitchen, and I've seen a lot of people experience highs and lows. I think that historically, maybe culturally, kitchen work has been typically grueling. It's been sometimes non-rewarding, and sometimes a little bit thankless. And I think sometimes staff in the kitchen are feeling that stress and anxiety from working in the kitchen. And then that starts to evolve into something else, so drug abuse, alcohol abuse, aggression. What I try and do is I try and let my students know that, that when they're coming into our culinary degree program, I try to tell them it's not all what you might see on Food Network. I kind of tell them off the bat, stop watching Food Network. Gordon Ramsay is not the norm. Okay.
No.
It's a tough job. It can be fun. It can be rewarding, but you have to be able to take initiative. But at the same time, you have to be able to manage the stress of it all. And a lot of students that start off don't necessarily have that resilience and that coping mechanism when it comes to being in the kitchen. So I think that, culturally there has been that stress and anxiety and, everything that comes along with it, depression and just dealing with life and everyday challenges. But the thing is, even having managed my own staff, there were times when I didn't know what they were dealing with. And I've had challenges with my own staff, and those are the times when, as a leader and as a manager, you have to step back and bring everyone together and say, okay, what's going on, guys? Talk to me. Let me know how I can help. And that's something that not every leader or every manager knows how to do. And I feel like like I love everything that Treena is saying in terms of policies and all those little bits and pieces there. I think that's all useful, but I don't think that as a young chef coming in, that's not going to be your focus, right? Your focus is going to be how can I make my mark in the kitchen? How can I make my mark on the food? And if I have the opportunity to become, a junior sous chef or executive sous chef, how else am I going to step that up? So a lot of managers don't necessarily have that focus. Like, I can even speak for myself. When I was younger, there was nothing in my head about policy and whatever else, right? It's just how can I get ahead? But I think, and the point I was making in my comment was that chefs now are becoming more aware of the culture of the kitchen, how to manage kitchens, how to manage their own kitchens. I've spoken to several chefs, who have gone through mental health struggles, mental health challenges. And they've come out of it on the flip side, feeling better because they're able to talk about it. And that's what I want, my students to be aware of as well. Like, even culinary students now, they're dealing with so much. And to Trina's point, COVID, I think, has just magnified that. So like, it's just made it like this. And not being able to connect and not being able to communicate and engage and actually, have that interaction. It's been tough. I gotta tell you, it's been tough. And, there are still some chefs out there who, even though they've gone through COVID or have had COVID challenges with COVID, they still don't understand how to manage that other piece about mental health, and it's still a learning and a teaching process. And, even, being a mental health first aider is just, there's just so much to manage, when you're managing a group of people, whether it's 5, 50 or whatever. It's a lot to manage.
Thanks for that, Warren. Tip tool, and I loved how you shared that, because again, it's recognizing the skill deficit and the training, but it's not always policy. How can we get out the brainstorming and enact the skill into the behavioral and the environment we need? So it's called solution focused resiliency. It's related to operational. You can apply it to any strategic planning or just in a group as a manager leader. So if there's something going on, and the common easiest way is to go in and say, hey guys, I noticed something, what's going on? Talk to me, right? But that's the standard norm. Nobody knows how to kind of flip the script of how you want to engage the solutions to come out with not just the problem. So if you go in and recognize everybody has innate resiliency traits. So being a resiliency trainer 25 years, we all have innate traits. So your students do have the skills of resiliency. They just don't know how to pull out the skills in the environmental context. So in a group huddle, or you see something's going on, it's coming from the perspective saying, hey guys, you know what? I'm going to ask you all something right now, and I want you just to answer whatever comes to mind, endless possibilities of what it looks like. So whatever's going on, I don't want to know first, but I want to know, If we woke up tomorrow and everything was perfect and this restaurant was running and everybody was happy, loving life, what does that look like? What do you feel would be different? What do you notice your teammates would feel different? What does that look like environmentally? And what has changed? So, and give it a start off with a scale. So right now, you know, at 1 to 10, it looks like it's 3 here. If we woke up tomorrow and it was a 5, 6, what would that look like? And so then it comes from not saying, let's focus on what the conflict issue concern is. It's here's the solutions first to what we're all feeling, and then build from there. And that's where you're going to bring out the resiliency of not necessarily resiliency in the kitchen as a chef. You're going to bring out their innate resiliency traits that they've used for past conflicts, adversities, traumas. It's just using that skill set that we have and learning how to pull it out with people in the environmental context you need. And that's where, through the framework of the Canadian National Standards and like what I do, if you didn't want to do it on your own, you can bring in analysis like myself, and you create a team, and we do like a survey to identify, like if it's one bad workplace, what are the underlying issues? And then you create the team from top to the front line. Everybody has a role, and then you brainstorm, how are we going to make it better? And you base it on the 13 factors that highlight where are the issues stemming from.
Good. You know, Warren, you hit on this, and Treena, you've talked about it as well, but change, it really needs to start at the top, right? And, you know, we're all of us on this call, we're leaders in our industries, and we're here because we know this is something that needs to be addressed, needs to be talked about, it needs to be focused on. But there are those who do not. So, you know, how do we get that message out? How do we help to start making a difference and make change out there, right? Because it's a lot easier said than done, you know, and I'm, you know, we've got connections and people that we're working with, and we're doing what we can, but you know, if you don't have that buy-in, and I'm sure everybody has worked in that organization. I mean, I remember when I was back in my hotel days, I was training a program that was mandated by corporate office. And we were training all the people on it, but our general manager would say the words, but did not support the program. So you can do all this, you know, you can have your middle or your junior managers, and you can have your trainers, and you can put in all these programs and put everything in place. But if you don't have the buy-in and the support from that leadership group, it's money well wasted, right? So what are some things that we can do? And, you know, Treena, I'll ask you, but I'll also ask others, and maybe you've seen some of this happening out there. You know, what are some ideas? How do we get this to be more of a focused topic and people to start listening?
Well, the key is education, right? So if the top are not educated in what being trauma-informed is, trauma-informed communication, what psychological health and safety truly represents from a national standpoint of the world or within their specific state or province, it's that baseline education of what is psychological health and safety. Right. Because if you don't understand what the basic formula is and what it looks like, that you could go share it with somebody else, right? How are you going to share it and feed it down in policies? Because policies, they're only there to mitigate risk of lawsuits, harassment claims, the high costs if you don't have a policy in place and this occurs and somebody puts in a complaint. But to change the behaviors and enhance the environment, it's that, like right now, like besides this, I'm doing training in trauma informed for professionals. I'm doing resiliency training with strategic planning. It's to educate, right? So even a lot of resiliency training is going on, a lot of more research, and my background's in mental health, right? So I'm always looking to see, is it more new or something that I've missed? And they're all coming back to the basic mental health: sleep well, eat well, connect. My training from 25 years ago, I actually have an assessment tool that helps you identify your resiliency traits, your innate traits. If you can't name them, how do you pull them out to use them, and how do you help others? So I have a workshop that I give, and I help people identify, and I've done it with the Privy Council and the Justice Department in Canada, with the government, right? To help them figure out their traits, enhance their sense of well-being, and know they can get through COVID, right? because
Right.
we're all going to get through it, and we've already created a legacy. So I always kind of end it, because I'm just watching the time, is the rocking chair test. And if you've never heard of the rocking chair test, imagine yourself sitting on your rocking chair at 85, and you're reflecting on your life and your successes in the restaurant industry. What do you want your memories to be? And somebody came to you, and you remember an employee coming to your retirement saying, you really motivated me, and you made me see things differently, and you made me feel valued, right? And you still do this. How did you do it, right? Because that leader knew how to bring out the strengths and value and make people feel valued. And that's what everybody wants right now, especially with COVID. Help people identify their strengths. And if you can't identify your own strengths, you have no ability to identify others. And let people know they're valued. And it's simple thing is gratitude. So if a high level or your second level manager doesn't feel comfortable to express or acknowledge a strength, a success story, a gratitude, there's the start of the problem right there. Is asking yourself, do you feel comfortable and safe enough to be able to not just give discipline and negative comments, but acknowledge people's strengths?
Yeah. And to Warren, Warren just said, and also that they belong,
Yeah.
right? They're part of the bigger picture. They're part of the team. They're part of the success of the business. So,
And I was just going to say quick of how to get it going. You mentioned the cake celebration, right? And the patrons see that. It does bring safety. So it's, again, non-cost. You can't, because cost factor is so, because of due to COVID, the loss of money everywhere. What can you as a team implement that people will feel valued, right? That's free. And it could be even like little things of a thank you card, or highlighting on a board who's the star of the week, or who helped somebody, right? Who
Right.
gave somebody or helped somebody outside of the restaurant industry that made you feel valued or worthwhile, right? Because giving to others also helps, right? But it's brainstorming with the people that you work with and asking them, what makes you stay here? How can we improve?
definitely.
And, go ahead.
Yeah. No, the one thing, I'm very glad to hear that you work with the Privy Council, working with the Canadian government, and, with some of the new legislations coming in, that's where unfortunately, it's going to get to some of the top level managers when they get somebody who complains and they're dealing with one of these cases and it's hitting them in the pocketbook. It unfortunately sometimes takes that to make change happen. So hopefully it doesn't get to that. Scott, did you want to unmute yourself and just kind of share your points here?
Yeah, sure. I'd be glad to. Scott Meyer, Patricia Associates, and thanks for having me on, Darren.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Treena and Warren. I think that, myself being a recruiter in the mainly the hospitality, but also many other industries, part of the biggest thing is just the change, right? There's so many changes that are happening so fast. So especially right now, I'd say in June, July, here, United States, everything is almost full force open. So you're struggling to hire the right people. You're struggling to get the right people, what you need. You got to make sure you have a process in place. You got all these things, but as Treena mentioned, number one, you have to have a plan in place. If you don't have a plan in place, it's just going to be, you'll be reinventing the wheel. So that I completely agree. But number two, before COVID ever happened, you look at the stats, just talking to managers, CEOs, 50% of people were scared to even say they had a mental problem, right? They thought that they would lose their job, things would happen. So now coming out of COVID, 3/4 of the people have been affected some way with mental illness, of us all, whether it be a CEO down to a line worker. So it really comes down, as I mentioned, circling back around to empathy, right? What is your culture? I've got a great client right now, and I pre-screen, and the one thing we do is we look forward to, do you smile? This is for cooks, chefs, no matter what, because you have to care. Caring now and culture, people say money's great, but it's all about having fun and culture. And that's, if you're having fun, you're enjoying your life, no matter what it is, you'll be happy. So just want to kind of share those little tidbits and kind of add to kind of what I see out there every day.
Awesome. No, that's great. Thank you, Scott. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here tonight.
Can I mention something?
You bet, Greg. Go ahead.
I used to own my own pizza business, and I found what Trina's talking to, we don't have psychology degrees to be able to figure out our employees and our managers, and I'm a simple kind of a guy. And there's a book out there called Who Moved My Cheese that talks about personalities and identifying individuals' personalities and how to work with them. And it's a very easy reading book. I would buy that book for every general manager, every manager. And that's what we read off of. That seemed to be our platform, but it gave us the ability to understand the employees we're working with, gave us the ability to know how to respect and honor what they're going through. And it allowed the employees to open up as well. And it's a very simple book, very easy book to read, and quick and easy. But it talks about personality profiles, right? And that's part of what we need to learn as owners and managers, is how to work with everybody and their different kinds of personalities.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. And what's kind of great too with the Canadian National Standards and the ISO, because it's coming from mental health, they are, and I'll have the links when I send out the PowerPoint to research, it is simple reads to choose whether, for the smallest restaurant to implement. It's not for a high level understanding, and it's not to have a background in mental health or psychology. It's for the everyday person, so everybody can be on the same baseline of what psychological health and safety looks in the workplace.
Perfect. Warren, I know you had a point you wanted to make.
Sorry, just real quick. I just wanted to piggyback off what Greg was saying. I try and tell my students that when you step into leadership roles, you will encounter the most diverse set of personalities in the world. Being in this industry, we have probably the most diverse industry ever, in terms of, line cooks, entry-level positions, whatever. Everyone, if you're in charge, everyone's going to be coming to you with what's on their mind, what's bothering them. They're going to want to talk to you in the office, and you have to know, as a leader and a manager, you have to know how to communicate with each person individually on different levels. So dealing with different personalities, everyone's different challenges, whether it's single mother or, the person whose relative had COVID or something, all those things come into play when you are trying to maintain productivity and maintain an operation.
Definitely. Greg, I think just what everybody has read that book, because I'm, seeing a lot of people shaking their head and smiling, and Star, great point. Not only did they get our cheese moved, our cheese was dropped in a wood chipper and sent to 1,000 different directions. Right. So that pretty much puts the last 16 months into a real good perspective. So, guys, it's 6:01. Are there any last minute questions? Anything else anybody would like to share? All right, perfect. So, everybody, thank you very much for being a part of this discussion tonight. I really appreciated all the input, feedback, and shares from everybody. Treena, thank you so much for taking the time to put that together and present to us. It was great information. I hope that we will continue having this conversation and moving forward to make sure that we are doing everything we possibly can to provide that safe work environment in our businesses and with our clients and everything else that we do. So I put the email in the chat for everybody. So if you do want the information that Treena is going to be sending me, just send me an email at greatmindsessions@gmail.com, and I will make sure you get a copy of it. A copy of this recording will be put out on all my LinkedIn pages, the YouTube page and Facebook page, so that you can have a look at it and refer back to it if there's anything you want to learn. If you want to get in touch with Treena, if you want her to help you out in your business with some of this stuff, send me a note. I can get you her contact information, because I know she'd be more than happy to do that. But at that, guys, I will wish you a very happy evening. Thank you very much for being here. Stay safe and enjoy the rest of the week. And we'll look forward to seeing you on, I believe it's August 3rd, will be the next Great Mind session. I look forward to seeing you all then.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All right, guys.
everybody.
Have a great
Wonderful
night.
content. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
Take
everyone.
care. Have a great night.
Thanks very much.